Thank you, Paul, for that distinctive introduction. I normally prefer having expectations lowered rather than raised when I'm about to speak, so I guess thank you for nothing. But I'm here to talk today about Beforepay and the journey that we've had with AI. So if we can toss up my slides. Just a little bit about who I am. So my background, I'm a data scientist. I've worked as Chief Data Officer of a major bank, and I joined Beforepay as the CEO a few years ago. The reason that I'm here today is that, as everybody heard, I'm reliably informed that AI is going to be big. But as you probably all know, everybody has a pilot and everybody's got a chatbot and everybody's working on a tool to help their staff find information quickly. But there are still very few scaled deployments of AI at the very core of a company. And we are a company that has ripped out the old core of what we do and replaced it with one that is AI powered. That was a difficult and painful process. We have learned a huge amount along the way. And so I'm going to talk about some of the challenges that we've experienced and things that I wish I had known before we got started and indeed along the way. This is a topic I'm very passionate about. So this is normally a series of rants delivered over many, many hours. I've compressed it to about 20 minutes. But by all means, grab me afterwards, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm a huge evangelist and passionate about scaled AI deployment, and if I can be helpful to you in any way, please do reach out. So 30 seconds about Beforepay. So we're an Australian company, and what we do is we're a mission-driven organization. Our goal is to create safer and more affordable short-term lending products. And so the way that we do that is we have a non-revolving, very safe product that we call a Pay Advance. It's a short-term loan. In order to deliver that and be sustainable, we have to be enormously efficient. So we currently write about 40,000 loans every week, and we're a team of 50 people. And we have to be really good at knowing who to loan to and how much. So we built a lot of tools which ended up becoming pretty sophisticated AI tools in order to do that. You can see some of the awards that we've won. I'm very proud of what we do and our mission, but I'm here today to talk specifically about our AI deployment. So a little bit of context as to the particular use case. Now, the lessons I've learned, I think, are quite broadly applicable across a wide range of use cases, but to explain what this one is. So we build models to work out whether we should be loaning money to somebody, and we also do this for other lenders as well around the world. And so, as with any predictive analytics engine, what we do is we collect a lot of data, we transform it, we generate features, which are specific kind of data points that we want to test and measure, we assemble those into a model, and then we run it on a daily basis. So that's a very common, not necessarily AI-powered thing that lenders do, and indeed many of you would be involved with predictive analytics systems in some way. Feature generation is what I'm here to talk about today. Now, I've been building these sorts of models for 25 years, and in the year 2000, when I got started, you would have a few dozen data points, maybe 10 or 20 attributes, and so you could basically build these models manually. And today, it's great that we have so much more data, but how do you actually take that data and turn it into something useful? When people say data is the new oil, I ask them, well, what's the commodity price for data? And there isn't one, because you have to actually use it, and that's much tougher than just saying data is the new oil. So you can create these features manually. You can do it through a brute force combinatoric way, which I won't spend time on. Or this is actually a fantastic application for generative AI, because you're trying to generate something at scale that requires, if not human judgment, at least a facsimile of human judgment. And it's across unstructured and very varied data sets. So it's the perfect use for data AI. So the great news is this is fantastic. Gen AI can be creative. It's enormously efficient. It's relatively cheap compared to humans. It's relatively straightforward. You just type it all in. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm ready to take questions. No, but there are a number of very, very difficult things. So first of all, if you speak to an executive who knows nothing else about generative AI, they will say, well, what about hallucinations? What about accuracy? And that's very, very real. The answer to this one is you just can't use Gen AI in some places. And we would never use generative AI in an actual decisioning moment. And again, the analogy extends to many other use cases. So if you are making a decision about a human and it matters, you cannot use generative AI. That's a pretty kind of hardline conservative stance that I believe in passionately. Others would disagree, but we would never let Gen AI into a model. But in order to get to that model, and you can create quite a simple model at the end of it, of course, that's fine. And so that's more an education question as to understanding how this works. Now, the second challenge, and this is not an education question, this is a real and significant problem, is if you are replacing any production process at the core of your company, in any use case, whether or not it's AI, that's very, very difficult. And so for us and for our clients who are lenders where we build the models for them, this is a fundamental life or death question, and you have to get it right. And that is a risky change. I don't think it is a good idea 95% of the time, if it can possibly be avoided, to have a big bang approach to these implementations. If you are changing a core process, you are betting the company on that change, and what if you are wrong? And so the way that we've always thought about this, and it's very painful to do this, but it is the right way, I believe, is you have the existing process, and then you build the new process and you run it in parallel, and especially for any kind of decisioning system like ours, but for most use cases, you can run it in a shadow mode for a while, you can start to change the weightings over time. But it is tricky because you do have to support two systems potentially for a significant period of time. And I don't think there's any way around it, but being upfront with that difficulty up at the very beginning is a much better way than sort of hoping it will all work out. So this is one where I think it's about staring into it, moving slowly, and just accepting that that's a difficult transition. Now, this is one that I'm also very passionate about, and I'm not conservative. I'm super aggressive on this one, which is there are so many cases where a process is done by humans, and you'll have someone say, well, I'd love to have AI supporting this, but at the end of the day, a human needs to make the call. Now, I believe a human needs to be accountable for that call, the same way that with any tool, ultimately there's a user and they're on the hook from a moral, legal, regulatory, and every other point and every other standpoint. But the question I ask our clients when we build a model for them is, if you want to keep a human in the loop, you can, but what is that human doing? So here is a tool that is going to generate a statistically provably better outcome. And so you're going to have a person who is going to look at it probably fairly briefly and say, yeah, looks all right. Are you actually adding any value? And in fact, I think in many cases, if you measure that, what's happening is that human is just adding their own bias back in. You're getting to less fair outcomes than you would if you left the tool. And so by all means, if you need a human in the loop, leave the human in the loop. But what are they actually there for? Now, I say here you should leave the analysts in place, and I think you should, because they should actually be supervising the model, supervising the outputs, checking for bias, doing all of those sorts of things anyway. I don't think you want to simply exit them from the building, and I don't think that would be the fair thing to do anyway. But simply having somebody look at outputs that are better than what they would come up with, and they're better, and just form a view on them, I don't think that is helpful. Now, many generative AI deployments involve automated code production, and it is so powerful when you get it right, but it also means you may be running things and you don't know what they are. This is super scary, and this is one where I think you never want to be overconfident. We think about this in a lot of different ways. One is there are ways you can review code in an automated way. So for those of you that have some software engineering capability, use kind of an AST tree. You take the code and you can actually look at, well, show me what this code is actually going to touch when it executes. And if that's something you don't want touched, then that code gets destroyed. Of course, you deploy it in a sandbox. Of course, you do, if you can do manual reviews, you can. You can certainly do automated reviews. This is, to me, a challenge very similar to broader cybersecurity challenges, which is that there are a million little things. You try to get them right, and it's always going to be a battle. Everybody will always say, well, we don't have the right data capability, the right data environment to use AI, and I always say, correct, you do not. But you can do way more than you think you can do. When I was running data at a bank on a legacy technology, we had stuff from the 70s, and yet you can still always do quite a bit. So never let somebody use this as an excuse, but you do have to work on fixing it in parallel. You'll never fix it first and then do the fun stuff. You will never be done with the fixing, so you need to proceed on both at once. This is a pretty technical point, so I won't spend any time on it other than to say, when you have an AI-powered system, it often can optimize across a much wider range of activities, whereas you might have had a discrete process, because that's how humans work, where team A handed it to team B to team C, AI wraps across it. And so this can create a very significant organizational change and challenge in which you have to somehow bring those different parts of the organization closer together, because they're all now sharing a single model and a single process. So the answer is, yeah, you just got to deal with that. Sorry, don't have anything particularly inspiring to say, but it's an organizational change problem. And speaking of organizational change problems, so a lot of people also look at these sorts of models, and when you really stare into it, they are very, very different. And it is a very different way of running your business. And so a lot of people say, oh, honestly, we just don't have the people. Oh, we're a trucking company. Oh, we're a telco. Or the average age of our workforce is 54. And what I always say is, first of all, you are going to be very surprised by who adapts to this new world. And I will often make a $10 bet, which is, I bet you the person who's going to be best at this has been with your company for more than 20 years, which is usually a pretty easy bet to win, because it's usually going to be someone senior to get on the radar, and they'll have been around for a while. But consistently, people who are older than you think, people who have different backgrounds than you think, are very, very good at this, and people who are younger may or may not be. So you will be surprised by how good many of your people are, but as with any change, not everybody will make the transition to the new world. And so the way we think about that is, well, what's the best and kindest and most respectful way to manage those transitions over time? Usually, because of the pace of change, you can often kind of find ways to have people do different things, and you can move by attrition where you need to. And again, people will retrain, people will step up, people will surprise you. But yes, this is a high degree of change when you actually are really deploying AI at the core, as opposed to having sort of a cute little pilot in the basement, or having some little internal tool that doesn't really touch the sides of what you do in any meaningful way. The slide shows these one at a time, but I don't really have time to go through them all one at a time. So I'll just start by picking out a couple of these. I focus on number 3. So you will need to get your data engineering right. And yes, you can get started now. You can do a lot now, but you're just going to need to fix it, and it's going to be horrible and painful, and you'll need to spend time on things that you probably find boring, and it really, really matters, and it's worth doing. I've talked a bit about 7. So if you are keeping humans in the loop with these systems, you have humans reviewing the outputs, that's fine, but just be clear about why they're there. Be clear about what they're doing. Is that just something for regulatory reasons? Is it liability reasons? Do you actually want them to check the results? And if so, how are they checking it and against what? Because otherwise, it's very easy to put this tool in but not change anything else, and you only get a fraction of the benefit. And then the last one, number 9, the most important from all of this, which is that this stuff works. It is hard. It is painful. There will be frightening moments. There will be people who don't kind of make the journey. You will be surprised, and there'll be twists and turns. You won't finish where you thought you were going to go, but it will work, and it will work far better than you expect. And in particular, the more that you're willing to lean into it and embrace it, and in a risk-aware way, in a sensible way, and all of those sorts of things, turn over as much as you can to this new and better way of doing things, the greater the benefit that you will get. We have about 5 minutes left. Again, I'm passionate about this stuff. Grab me anytime. I would love to help you in whatever way that I can. This will make the world a better place. But I can help you all right now for 4 minutes and 20 seconds with questions.
So any questions you were asked to think about them, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, folks. We have a question over there. You can shout.
There's a mic coming.
We're saving you your voice.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. I have a question on topic number 3. Don't just accept off-the-shelf transaction categorization engine. So how do you look at buy or build? Because obviously, if you buy technology, you can use, let's say, the capabilities of these vendors. So how do you look at buy or build?
Yeah, so number 6 is a very specific technical thing relative to our use case around transaction categorization engines. The way that we think about it is anything that's a commodity service, buy it. There's no reason, unless you have enormous scale, to build your own messaging system or payment rails or whatever it might be. But if this is a core part of the IP, then it is worth really interrogating it and trying to do better. Now, this is really core to what we do. There may be similar things that are helpful but less core to what you do, in which case I think that becomes less important. But I would never say to somebody, if this is absolutely the core of your business, just buy a tool and plug it in. I don't think that'll get you the benefit you hope for.
Thanks.
Yeah. Fantastic question. Another one over there? I'm sure we can pass the mic. I'm disappointed. Really? You get more chance questions.
That's been really helpful. I'm wondering for item number 1, you need a credit person and a data person.
Yeah.
At what point does that become a company value rather than an individual?
Sorry, when I said company value, can you say?
So in the terms of, at one point you need one of each who understands both. At what point does it become all of your credit people need to understand something about data science?
Yeah, great question.
How do you manage that complexity?
Great question. So I'll start by saying this obviously is specific to us, but indeed you can replace credit with whatever it is that you do. And what doesn't work is you have the data science team here and you have the whatever your core business is here, your railroad scheduling people here or your credit people here, because the people over here won't understand what the data people need, and the data people won't be able to kind of ask the right questions or what they do. And indeed, that comes to number 5, which is choosing your error function carefully. I consistently find people try to have data science and AI cases, and you ask the CEO, well, what's your error function? He doesn't know what you're talking about and doesn't know what it is. And I think, okay, it's definitely not working. I don't need to hear anything more. DM me for details. I'd love to talk more about that. So I think that you definitely need individuals who understand enough of both to be dangerous. I'd say that the culture of both your business team and your data science team have to be oriented like this. So the data science team needs to understand and value the business and what you do and vice versa. I don't think that I wouldn't have a percentage of how many people need that. I think there's always room for a pure data scientist who doesn't know or care kind of how the trucking industry works. But the people who run those teams need to really understand each other, and that kind of culture of respect and capability and shared knowledge needs to pervade all the way down, even if you still have people kind of down on those teams who are much more focused on their specific part of it. Be my answer.
One quick question. Yes, please, in the middle. I'm sorry, we should have sent the mic over that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the talk. I was wondering regarding your point number 3, your data engineering and data engineering pipeline. With your transition, have you changed the way in your organization how you structure and how you think about data and data provisioning?
From an organizational structure, absolutely. So our product engineering and data teams are all now one team, and we folded them together because data is a core part of the product. In terms of the formal setup around data, we've made a number of fairly technical changes in terms of kind of systems and how we kind of pipe stuff back and forth, which in retrospect, we're modernizing things we should have modernized anyway. So I don't think kind of the data setup for AI needs to be that different than for anything else, but it should be, or you should be working towards a good, clean, modern, scalable, well understood and well-governed data system.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, didn't we promise you a fantastic first speaker, Jamie? That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Big round of applause, please. Big round of applause. Now.
Thank you very much.